Tuesday morning. I'm Jake Sherman, as aforementioned, founder of Punchbowl News. Thank you so much for joining us in person and on the live stream for this event, Investing in America with August Pfluger, the Texas Republican chair of the RSC and all-around pretty influential figure on Capitol Hill. Thank you to the American Investment Council for partnering with us to make this event possible. I'll be speaking with Mr. Pfluger about news of the day and how private capital is investing in America. Afterward, I'll be joined by AIC CEO Drew Maloney and the National Venture Capital Association President and CEO Bobby Franklin for a fireside chat. As always, you can find Punchbowl News on all social media platforms at Punchbowl News. Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Pfluger to the stage. Thank you, sir. And the best piece of trivia about you is you're probably the only member of Congress with a town in your state named after your family.
Oh, that is. I didn't think we'd start the morning with that.
I'm sure that's not due to you, but I mean...
But if you go to Austin, Texas, just north, you'll see Pflugerville,
yeah.
And that's the homestead.
Yeah, and I was in a hotel room recently that had a Pflugerville conference room in Austin, so that's good. All right, we're going to start, as we do at all Punchbowl News events, with some news of the day. And there is no news of the day, so I had to dig really deep for these topics. Let's start with, you have the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, coming in to the RSC lunch today. 189-member caucus, the RSC, which is the largest group of members on Capitol Hill. They agree on everything, so your job is very easy. Talk about what you're going to be talking to the Treasury Secretary about.
Well, thank you for the ability to talk about this. Very proud of the Republican Study Committee. My predecessor told me, he said, this is going to be the best hour a week that you will spend on Capitol Hill. And that's been true. The learning, the policy discussion, it's really the only opportunity in the week to talk about policy. So probably nothing to talk about today. When you look at markets and tariffs and where we are, and I'm sure we'll get into that here, but that's what I expect the conversation to be today is Donald Trump was elected to shake things up.
And shaking things up he is.
And he is. And we expect a good discussion with the Treasury Secretary today to talk about some of those goals, to talk about some of the objectives, to get to the point of where are we? Is America going to get a good deal or not? And that's not just here at home. It's obviously abroad. It's in our trading relationships. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, so I won't go into too much detail. But the questions that I think people are going to ask him is, show us the path, and let's talk about the objectives, because we know it's clear in Donald Trump's mind. We understand the president has a clear path that he is looking at. Come communicate to us so that we know what we can be doing. What are the things that we can be solving? What are the legislative vehicles that we can be pursuing? And those are the kind of questions. We've had some great speakers. Secretary of Energy came in and talked to us. We've had many people who are delivering that message, and that is, I think, the most important topic today will probably be on the subject of tariffs.
And what do you have a big district, a very large geographical district in a very large state, a lot of oil and gas, which we'll talk about in a minute, a lot of agriculture, a lot of natural resources. What are you hearing from your constituents about the tariffs?
This is a group of hardworking farmers and ranchers and oil and gas folks. We've got a lot of military personnel. 77 million people cast their vote for Donald Trump. I've got a tremendous amount of conservative folks in my district. We also have a lot of Democrats, so I represent a wide swath of people, but I think that they trust what's happening here. There's instability in the markets, okay? What my district would say is, everybody calm down. It's going to be okay. Look at what happened in the first term. You did have a downturn in the markets initially when he started to enact his plan. We're reordering a system, a global system that has been in place since World War II. And if you think about it that way, a couple of weeks of reordering and instability, okay, if we can get back to getting a good deal, my constituents would tell you, on the one hand, we trust what he's doing. We want to see the outcome of it. He deserves the opportunity to do the things that he's doing. I looked at crude oil this morning. The price of it was $55. So on the other hand, they want to see, anybody who studies these markets, there is a sweet spot for oil and gas. And the price of gasoline at the pump is not directly correlated anymore. This is not the 1970s to a barrel of oil. So that sweet spot's probably 65 to 85. That's what they're looking for, predictability. So yes, they want to get through the turbulent times, but they want to see what he does to restructure, reorder, and make trade better for us, for the district that is literally providing 45% of the country's crude oil. That's what my district does.
It's a lot. We'll talk about that in a minute. I want to ask one last question on News of the Day topics. The House Republican Conference is in the midst of trying to pass a budget resolution that would unlock this process to cut taxes, cut spending, and enact the vast majority, 90-something% probably, of the president's domestic policy agenda. What is going on? Are we going to see that on the floor this week? Is it going to pass? You think it'll be here next week? What's your sense?
Well, I'm very proud of what the House did a few weeks ago. I think the needle that we threaded of saying and acknowledging that $35 trillion in debt is not sustainable, of looking at the things that DOGE-type people are looking at, the inefficiencies, and acknowledging that we've got to do something, but also that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that Donald Trump passed in the first term, we cannot let these expire. We have to extend these. And there's a huge desire and an appetite within our conference. So we were able to thread that needle on both sides, both on the conservative side, people who $1.5 trillion was not near enough for them, for the fiscal hawks, and also those that maybe have more challenging districts who are like, hold on, $1.5 trillion, that's a lot of money. So I'm very proud of what we did. Understand where the Senate is and why they've done what they've done. But Jake, I think, this is a tough one for the Speaker. I trust what Speaker Johnson is doing and the leadership that he has demonstrated, the ability to bring people together. I do think this probably goes forward for a vote. I think it's going to be tough. I really do. I can get to yes with the assurances that we're actually going to garner some savings. The Republican Study Committee has been instrumental in driving a message that says any bill that we get to has to be deficit reducing. We have to look the American public in the eye and give you the confidence that we care about this, that we actually care about extending those tax cuts and doing the things for our children, for our grandchildren, that we leave them a better country. So I can get there. I'm hopeful that we move this process along because winning is fun. I think we've gotten a taste of winning with a couple of different things lately. Let's keep that going. But there's a lot of questions out there right now.
Let's move on to Texas and private investment. Texas has become, and I'm not just saying this because it's my wife's home state and I get brownie points for saying so, but a magnet for private investment. We've seen companies from all over the country move to Texas, international businesses as well. Why is your state and your district so attractive to private equity and private business and private enterprise?
How long do I have on this answer?
About 5 seconds. No, I'm kidding.
Do you ever walk into a room and not know somebody's from Texas?
No.
It happens.
I always tell my wife, it's a great state. I get it. Move on.
Well, it's like, how do you know a fighter pilot's in the room? Don't worry. They'll tell you, immediately. I love Texas. Love being from there. It's pro-business. It's pro-family. It's the regulatory nature goes back to us being a nation, and that is just leave us alone. We can do this, and I think that is true today, where people see that environment and they know whether you're a semiconductor company, an oil and gas company, any of the new tech startups. Look at the AI data centers that are coming into West Texas to harness the energy we have. So I think it's a business environment, it's an attitude, it's an ability to raise your family. These folks that are looking at it going, oh yeah, that's a really nice place to go be and raise a family. So I think it has to do with all of that. But I think the most important thing is that when companies come to Texas and they start or they continue the operations, they succeed. They make money for their investors. They make money for their company. They add to our GDP. And it's because of those factors that I just outlined. And success just breeds this desire to be there. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of people. Now, I will say, there is always that concern, like, hold on, don't bring your voting habits from places like California into Texas. We do say that, but it's a great place to live and start a business.
So your district runs, it's a big part of the state, as I said. It runs from north of Austin all the way west to Odessa, includes the Permian Basin, includes a lot of oil country. Are there specific projects, companies in your district that help explain some of these dynamics, some of these economic dynamics that you're talking about?
Sure. Innovation is the name of the game. What the oil and gas companies have done is they have figured out how to produce affordable, reliable energy. And they've done it, I mean, if I were to tell you the innovation of just drilling in general, but I think it's just this idea that they can figure it out. They can make it happen. And I'll go back to World War II. We were having a problem fighting Nazi Germany. They had figured out better technology in their airplanes. And again, as a pilot, I paid attention to this. What the oil and gas companies did in my district in Midland, Texas, was they figured out how to make higher octane fuel. And they put that fuel in the P-51, and that really, the performance on the aircraft we had was able to turn the tide. So yes, these companies are constantly innovating. They're constantly doing things better. I'm proud to represent them.
And besides energy, what other sectors are you seeing private capital and investment grow in your district and across Texas?
Across Texas, I would say the AI, the data centers, the payment processing centers, they're coming to Texas because of the energy that they have access to, because of the LNG. They can build a data center in West Texas. There's land, it's available, and then they can really get on the grid very quickly for a cheaper energy price than you could imagine. We have 80 to 85 gigawatts of demand right now, and what ERCOT, our grid operator, is telling us is that's going to be 150 gigawatts by 2030, 5 years from now. So that's why these folks are coming, and that the energy demands are going to be incredible throughout the U.S. We've got access to affordable and reliable energy.
Many of these energy deals that happen in your state and across oil country in America rely on the limited partner, general partner model. Why does this work? I mean, and you'll be dealing a lot with this in the tax bill and as you go forward in the next couple of weeks and months, maybe years, why this structure works and why it's so common in these partnerships.
This takes advantage of a couple of things. Private investment, especially in energy, in the last 6 to 7 years has been the name of the game. The banks left the energy sector for the most part because of ESG, because of other factors. So all these private investors got together and they realized that they could do it quicker, they could do it with less regulations, they could skip the government regulatory nature. And there's provisions like carried interest and other things that are really important to these guys because they want to see activity. They want to see the demand that they are servicing continue. So these are big provisions that we're working through that I'm incredibly in favor of.
So carried interest, let's put a pin in that for a second. That's every time there's a tax bill, very frequently we hear about carried interest when we talk about taxes and the treatment of some tax situations when it comes to private investment and things like that. It is a big part of, as you said, how general partners are incentivized in these deals. The Trump administration wants to eliminate it, has said they want to eliminate it. It sounds like you do not agree with that provision.
I think that this has been fundamental to the energy sector. It's been fundamental to the investment we've seen, the fact that we are now energy dominant. And I get where they're coming from. I understand that that's a long-standing point of view, but for us, I think we just need an educational moment to talk about what has happened in the Permian Basin, what has happened in the energy sector, and I think with that education, my colleagues could really get to the point where they understand it.
We'll start the education now. So how does it drive, in your view, innovation and risk-taking in energy? Because we know we've heard the education on some of the other sectors of the economy that are sectors of corporate America that use carried interest, but how does it drive innovation and risk-taking in the energy sector?
So when the banks decided through the ESG movement that they were not going to invest in energy, that specifically in hydrocarbons, specifically in oil and gas, because they demonized this growth, where we know that We're not in a transition, we're in expansion. And you may disagree with that, but that's my perspective. We've seen it time and again. The only source of investment out there was private money flowing from people. These weren't, this wasn't Wall Street. This wasn't,
Right.
These were people that got together that used this mechanism because they were incentivized to keep putting capital. Drilling is extremely capital intensive. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of money, and you have to be incentivized in some way through the tax code, specifically here, just like an R&D tax credit, just like any other incentive that you continue to invest. We are only energy dominant because of provisions like carried interest in the Permian Basin.
So general and limited partners in these energy deals have enjoyed tax parity, both treated as capital gains for some time. Why has that balance been important in the energy sector?
Again, I think it just goes back to the incentive that they continue to invest. It's very capital intensive. They want to keep putting money into it. But if you're not having a return on investment, and by the way, I think that's where we are on having predictability. You see the markets in a downturn because they want predictability. It's the same thing through the tax code, which is the Senate wanting to make permanent these provisions in the tax code. I agree with. We have to make sure we pay for it, but these limited partnerships have dominated the structures in places like West Texas.
Recent changes have started taxing general partners at a higher rate and than limited partners. What's your take on how that affects the balance and how it affects entrepreneurs in energy and beyond?
That's a great question for Jason Smith.
Yeah.
Defer and deflect to the Ways and Means Committee.
That's a courtesy that you're giving your Ways and Means chair.
And by the way, he's doing an awesome job. I think probably the structure has, I highlighted limited partnerships. That really has been the dominant form. So to your point, if you see less incentive, you're going to go to the mechanism, the organization where you get maximum benefit.
Let's talk about some of your roles on Capitol Hill. You're chair of the Republican Future Caucus, so you could tell the future, very good to know, and the RSC. So you're in a unique position to shape GOP priorities. How do you talk about how you're going to use those roles on issues like private investment and economic growth, and what is the RSC's role like even more broadly as we get into, I think people are right now rightfully focused on the budget and on this hurdle that will unlock reconciliation, and forget that after the budget is passed, you still have a long, long road to get Trump's agenda enacted. So talk about what that's going to look like for the RSC and for you.
We're already at work on this. And again, we've got 189 members. That covers geographically every area of the country. Ideologically, we have folks that are in Main Street and in the House Freedom Caucus, which is, there's no other organization like it. We've already been at work bringing people like Jason Smith, Brett Guthrie, Jody Arrington, committee chairmen who are going to be marking these bills up to our organization to educate our members. Number two, Treasury Secretary is going to be, our guest speaker today, and he is going to talk about the things that are important to the White House. So we are really the convergence, the one-stop shop for policy from within, from what we're doing within the House, as well as from the administration. And Jake, the other thing is we work very closely with the Senate. Before we had the CR vote, have you ever seen a Republican Study Committee chair put out an affirming statement on a year-long CR?
No.
Never. Which I did. And the reason we did, because we knew at that point in time that was the only move, stabilize things, get to reconciliation. We brought Susan Collins in. Susan Collins and Tom Cole sat next to me. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was on the other side. And we had a conversation, and I'm not sure the Senate was there. And I'm not saying that lunch was the deciding point, but I don't know.
You should just take credit for it.
I don't know of any other lunch that had those people, the chair of the House Appropriations and the Senate Appropriations and the Speaker. And we had a discussion, and by the end of the discussion, I think Senator Collins was like, oh yeah, I guess this year-long CR is the only option. So those are the kind of things that we have done. And there's a lot of great groups that are out there. We just happen to have all the ideological mix of the conference. And we still care about being the conservative conscience of the conference. That's really the driving factor.
So we have to wrap it up in a second. I'm getting the hook in a second. But I want to ask you So you've heard a lot of ideas there's a lot of ideas from the Trump administration that you agree with. I'd say 98%. And then there's ideas like carried interest. There's ideas like raising the top tax rate, hiking taxes on folks who are making more than $1 million, which a lot of Republicans don't agree with. I'd say the vast majority of Republicans don't agree with. How do you handle those, and how do you handle pushing back on that in the House before they, you've been in the House long enough, not too long, but long enough to know that you have to be forceful before things barrel out of control, especially with a president as popular as Donald Trump. So how do you counter those kinds of tax increases on folks from the seat at the RSC?
Well, I'll answer it in this way. If you wait till the last minute to plan in the House, then it's not going to work.
Seen that many times.
You have to get ahead of it, and the RSC is that group where we are doing things. I mean, we could spend 2 hours here talking about the initiatives that we have outside organizations on scoring, to counter what CBO is doing. But let me just say, President Trump may operate in an unorthodox manner, and he may stir things up and shake things up, but everybody just calm down, because the restructuring needs to happen. And I don't disagree on where he's trying to go. In fact, I agree wholeheartedly. There may be provisions, and guess what? I may come off of my beliefs because you hear what he's saying and you go, oh, okay, that's why you're doing it. And I'd say 99 out of 100 times, as you mentioned, 98 to 99%, that's what we have done, is we've believed that he's got a good plan for it. There's not a lot of disagreement. He is an unorthodox person. He creates leverage through the chaos of reordering things. We need a shakeup. We need it here. We need it abroad. I've seen it. I've lived abroad, and he's doing that.
Mr. Pfluger, thank you very much. We're going to reset the stage for what I promise will be, I've been promised 15 seconds, and come back with our next two guests. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.